this coming weekend, Saturday, July 1st, going down at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. UFC Fight Night Strickland versus Magomedov. The main event middleweight clash between Sean Tarzan Strickland and I forget how to say his first name. Abuspayan? Am I saying that right?
I believe. Oh, maybe it's Abus. I don't know.
Magomedov.
I guess it's eight. I mean, the full name is Abu Supian, so how would you say the shortened version? Abus?
Abus?
I think it should be Abus.
I feel like they say like Abus, but I guess that's maybe just people saying that like casually.
It can't be Abus. I can't imagine him. I can't imagine like his family be like Abus. That can't be it.
It'd have to be Abus.
Abus. Yeah.
Let's work our way up from the beginning of this card. We're gonna do quick pick style all the way up until what, the co-main?
Whatever it may be. But yes, we're gonna give you guys as an episode 100 gift. We're gonna stay here late and give you a full card preview here.
Here we go, and then trivia. And for episode 100, we have 100 trivia questions. I'm kidding. Let's see. Starting things off for this UFC Fight Night in the heavyweight division, I will say this card is kind of oddly ordered because this heavyweight.
I mean, both these guys are ranked.
I was just going to say, like, this is a consequential heavyweight clash. Starting out the entire card, the first fight of the prelims for this fight night in the heavyweight division, Alexandr Romanov versus Blagoy Ivanov. Mark, start us off. Give us your quick take and quick pick for this fight.
Should I give odds this early or skip them?
Skip them.
Yes. Yeah, skip them.
Okay. All right. 3 inches of height, 2 inches of reach for Romanov, and it is a make-or-break performance for him. And Ivanov is not an easy guy to have that type of performance against because he's kind of a nullifier. And if he nullifies Romanov early, the question will immediately become whether Romanov wilts or mentally breaks again, as he has been prone to do in the last couple. Not to mention, I peeked at the man's Instagram, and he still looks like he's fat as shit, like he was the last fight, so I guess he didn't make any improvements there. So, there are not a lot of reasons to believe in Alexandr Romanov, but I'll be a dick and do it one more time. His talent early on was too tantalizing for me to not cross my fingers and hope he can get himself straight. So I will say round 2 submission for Alexandr Romanov.
Omar.
I mean, it's. I have zero confidence in Romanov after his last performance. Let's just be real about it, right? That last performance was absolutely gross. I think he said that there was something wrong. I'm sure there was some kind of excuse or reason or something like that was made. But Jesus Christ, I mean, that performance was kind of as bad as it gets. Blagoy is Blagoy, for better or worse, and I kind of know what I'm getting from him. He's relatively consistent, for better or worse. So I'm going to go Blagoy for this one. I think if Romanov if he has a good night, it's very possible he could win this fight. I don't have the confidence that he will. So I'm going to go Blagoy by unanimous decision.
Just looking at his bio here, learning for the first time, Blagoy Ivanov and myself are born a mere 1 day apart. That being said,
Would you look at that?
Virtually identical. That being said, in spite of his ranked status, I have not been a big Blagoy Ivanov guy. And I agree. I think that, especially given his earlier fights in the UFC, Romanov is a guy who you'd say is much more talented than Ivanov. That being said, he looked like utter dog shit in his last fight. That being Romanov. If it were anybody else, maybe other than Blagoy Ivanov, I would be enthusiastically picking Romanov's opponent. That being said, I will very unenthusiastically be taking Alexandr Romanov by unanimous decision in this fight. Let's move on. Women's featherweight, Ivana Petrovic versus Luana Carolina. Omar, give us your
flyweight.
Excuse me, flyweight. What did I say? Omar, give us your quick
You said
take
feather.
and quick pick.
My man said featherweight like we had a Norma Dumont fight on our hands. That is not the case. Yeah, the fight's interesting, man. This is, if we're being honest, this is probably the one fight out of the entire card that I'm not super jazzed on. Doesn't necessarily mean it won't be a great fight. It's just not one I'm particularly familiar with as far as the first woman here, Ivana Petrovic. I'm not super familiar with her, but from her resume, it looks like she goes out and she murders people. Carolina is the type of fighter so far in the UFC that goes out to get murdered. So there seems to be a correlation here, and I think I'm going to go with the former in Ivana Petrovic by first round KO.
Mark.
Yeah, generally on our previews we kind of skip these where it's a debuting fighter, but we're running through the full card here, so not a lot we know about Ivana Petrovic. She is 2 inches taller. She does have a 2-inch reach advantage. I've never loved Carolina's game, even though she does have some wins that are still surprising to me. But looking at Petrovic's resume, she is a 2-1 betting favorite. I will roll with her to win a UD.
Yeah, likewise, I have never been big on Carolina. She is also coming off of back-to-back losses. Therefore, let me go with the prospect who's coming into the UFC. Going to come into the UFC with a bang. Let's go with second-round finish in favor of Petrovic by TKO, round 2. Let's move on now to the lightweight division. Guram, Kutateladze versus Elves, Brenner. Mark, start us off. Give us your quick take and pick.
This is a showcase fight for Guram Kutateladze. I mean, he is a ranked level lightweight, and he should be fighting other dudes. He's just had bad luck. He's been hurt. His opponents have been hurt, so on and so on. He found a way to hop on the card late here, and I think he wins this fight anywhere he chooses, to be honest. Brenner's never been finished, so I guess I'm just going to say it is a dominant decision for Guram.
Omar.
I 100% agree. I think Guram is probably going to have his way with him. I think it's probably going to get a little abusive. And I'm actually going to go with the decision win for Kutateladze 30-26.
We are unanimous in taking Kutateladze. I will say that Kutateladze gets it done with the finish. I'll say TKO in round number 1, handing Brenner his first knockout loss. Let's now go to the women's featherweight division. No, it is not a Norma Dumont fight, Omar. It is Yana Santos, formerly Yana Kunitskaya, taking on Karol Rosa. Omar, start us off.
Wait, what? They're fighting at featherweight?
That's what it says on.
Why are they doing that?
Because featherweight is the deepest that they have right now.
Was it booked late or something? That's weird. I wonder. I can't remember when this fight was booked. Maybe it was a recent booking that they just tried to throw onto the card. Strange. Anyway,
it is very odd. Very odd. But if they plan on staying there, y'all better give Norma a call. Don't disrespect my girl. Yana Santos, the former Yana Kunitskaya, she's had a little rough go in the last couple fights, but if you look at who she's fighting some real good competition, right? She's got the Holly Holm loss, which that could happen, and the Irene Aldana loss as well by TKO. Wasn't the best performance, and don't let the recent performance from Irene Aldana make you forget how good she really is. So I'm going to go with Yana Santos here. I think she can get it done against Karol Rosa. I will go with unanimous decision.
I agree. I think that let me jump in here with my pick because I should not always be picking last to be more fair to you guys. Yeah, Yana Santos is very talented, and she just fought the title challenger Irene Aldana and the perennial great Holly Holm looking to get back in the win column. I think this is going to be a y'all must have forgot performance for Santos. Give me Yana Santos by a UD over the talented Karol. Is it Rosa or Rosa? Because she's Brazilian.
Rosa.
It is Rosa.
Karol Rosa.
Yeah. Okay, Marco.
Yeah, I'm torn here. I'm never super sold on either one of these women, though I don't think either's bad either. They're both like, I feel like any given night they can win or lose. These two, 3 inches of height and 1 inch of reach on the Santos side. She is someone who will surprise at times in physical matchups, so I could see her doing that here and kind of just being stronger than you think in these physical exchanges. But if I got to make a pick, I think I'm going to lean Rosa. She is good in the clinch, and I think she can kind of just outpoint Santos in the boxing. So I will go Rosa UD.
Okay. Let us now go up to the men's featherweight division. Joanderson Brito taking on Westin Wilson. Mark, why don't you stay with you right here and you give us your quick take and quick pick.
Late replacement here for Brito. I forget who he was supposed to be fighting. Omar just mentioned it a few minutes back. But Westin Wilson steps in. He is a plus 800 underdog. Brito is a minus 1,400 favorite. I'm not going to think too far into this one. Wilson is 5 inches taller. Only 1 inch of reach, oddly enough. So he's a much bigger dude, but I think he's a much bigger dude who's going to get hurt. I will say Brito wins by club and sub in round 1.
Yeah, I agree. Given the late replacement nature of this fight, and just looking at their records, Westin Wilson has a record of 16-7 as a pro. Coming into the UFC already with 7 losses on his record, taking on a guy as talented as a Joanderson Brito. I agree. I think I'll say Brito puts him away. I'll say he gets another third in a row first round finish. I'll say TKO round 1. Omar, you go.
From the looks of the resume, the kid likes to go to the ground, and he likes to go to the ground early. I think going to the ground against Joanderson Brito is probably not going to be the smartest decision he's going to make. I think he's going to play down there a little too much. I think he's going to get a little too confident playing down there against somebody like Brito, and I think he's going to get choked out for it. So give me Brito first round submission.
Okay, going up now to the featured bout on the prelims for UFC Fight Night, Strickland versus Magomedov. In the welterweight division, Kevin Lee, the Motown phenom, taking on Rinat Fakhretdinov. Apologies if I am butchering that name. I'll cue this one up a little bit. Kevin Lee, the Motown phenom, the 30-year-old out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. His record stands at 19-7. 8 victories coming by way of submission. Most recently, getting a UD over Diego Sanchez. He'll be standing across from Rinat Fakhretdinov, the 31-year-old out of Moscow, Russia. 20-1 as a pro, 11 wins by knockout. Most recently defeating Brian Battle by UD back in December. Coming into this weekend with a ridiculous win streak. Like I said, he only has 1 defeat on his record, that being back in 2013. So Kevin Lee looking to hand him only his second loss. Mark, why don't you just start us off? Give us your take and your pick for Kevin Lee versus Rinat Fakhretdinov.
All right, I'll give you the odds for this one, too, since it's, fairly important. Rinat is the favorite. He's minus 200, and Kevin Lee is plus 170 as the dog. So 3 inches of height for Rinat, but 3 inches of reach for Kevin Lee. He's notoriously long for anyone who has been watching long enough to be familiar with Kevin Lee. I wish so badly that Kevin Lee returned as a lightweight. I'm happy to see him back, but I was hoping it could have been down at 155. He's never been the same level of talent up at 170, in my opinion, just because guys can resist his wrestling much more than they can at the smaller weight. And then on top of that, they go ahead and match him with Rinat Fakhretdinov, who looks like a friggin' monster thus far. When Kevin Lee, he didn't have an easy time with Diego Sanchez. So it's going to have me go ahead and roll with Rinat. And look how good Brian Battle has looked in his fights, other than the one time he had to stand across from Rinat and got devoured. So who knows? Maybe Kevin Lee's wrestling is that good that he shocks us, but even if he does that early, I trust Rinat's cardio more than I trust Lee's, so give me Rinat by UD.
Omar?
Mute.
Yeah, I actually think that Fakhretdinov is going to out Kevin Lee. I think we're going to see Kevin Lee on his ass quite a lot in this fight. And Kevin Lee has a real problem when he's on his back. He's at a real disadvantage in that situation. When he's on top, it's a different story, obviously. But when he's on his back, he's not great. And I think Fakhretdinov is going to put him down there any chance he gets. And I also think the striking goes in Fakhretdinov's favor as well. His striking is really goddamn dynamic. His kicks are really goddamn good. And I don't have any confidence in Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee, like Mark said, like barely squeaked out this Diego Sanchez win, right? Like Diego Sanchez at the end of his rope, he couldn't get him out of there. Other people are throwing fucking Diego Sanchez out of there, and you know he's barely finishing the fight. Supposedly his knee blew out or something in that fight. I guess there was something that happened to him, supposedly. But I don't know. I don't see this going his way at all. I don't see the wrestling working for him. I don't see the striking working for him. I think it's a terrible matchup for Kevin Lee. So give me Fakhretdinov by unanimous decision.
Very tough fight for Kevin Lee at 170 pounds. I mean, how do you not go with Fakhretdinov right now, given this point in his career and this point in Kevin Lee's career, this being his second stint in the UFC? Totally agree with Mark. I so wish he was at 155. I see him so much more as a lightweight. He's only 5'9" tall. I just don't think he has the size to compete at welterweight in any significant way up into the rankings. Give me Rinat. I'll go knockout or TKO in round 2 in favor of the Russian. Okay, let's move on up into the main card of UFC Fight Night. Strickland versus Magomedov, going down once again at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas. Here we go. A couple of prospects taking on one another in the middleweight division. Bruno Ferreira, the Hulk, taking on a debuting fighter from Uzbekistan, whose name, it being his debut, I have full reign to butcher. Nursulton Ruziboev. I love that his nickname, according to Sherdog, is just Black. Here we go. Bruno Ferreira, the Hulk, the 30-year-old out of Curitiba, Brazil, undefeated, 10-0, 7 knockouts, 3 submissions. None of his 10 wins have gone the distance. Most recently, after winning by TKO on Dana White's Contender Series, he is now 1-0 in the UFC, officially defeating Gregory Hobokop Rodriguez by knockout in the very first round back in January of this year. Standing across from the Uzbek Nursulton Ruziboev, the 29-year-old out of Uzbekistan. His record stands at 34-8, 12 knockouts, 20 submissions for the Uzbek. He is riding an 8-fight win streak coming into this weekend. Omar, start us off. Give us your take and your pick for this middleweight clash.
I think it's a great fight. I think the real interesting thing here is the way that these guys seem to finish. I don't know much about Black. Are we just going to call him Black?
Let's just go with it for now.
We'll go with it for now. But the Hulk, we've seen him against Hobokop, and he absolutely destroyed Hobokop. When he did destroy Robocop, that was a good fight up until that moment. But we know he's got the power. We know he's got the hands. I think the Hulk is probably the most apropos name for him with the amount of power that he's gotten there. And Ruziboev is going to look to, I'm assuming, do a lot of the same. It's hard for me to pick a fight not knowing exactly what this kid has done and seen any of his skill set. So I'm going to go with Bruno Ferreira just because I've seen him win. I've seen his skill set, and I do like him. So I'll go with Bruno Ferreira here. I do know one thing. This is going to be a finish. I don't think this is going to go to the cards either way you stretch it. So I will go with a round 1 KO finish.
Mark?
So, Ruziboev has a 6-inch height advantage, which is pretty huge. I'm not sure on the reach. I don't see a reach listed anywhere for Ruziboev. But it's definitely going to be mixed martial arts from him versus hammers from Bruno Ferreira. But fuck it. Let's be fun. I liked the way Ferreira looked in his debut. He is undefeated. He is a beast of a man. And I will say that he can get Ruziboev out of there. Plus, it's an EV. It's not an OV on this man's last name, so you feel a little safer making this pick. Give me Bruno Ferreira, round 2 knockout.
Sure. You're taking Ferreira by knockout round
Omar,
2?
you looked like you were talking, but you're muted.
What happened?
It looked like you were saying something maybe, but you were on mute. Were you saying something?
I was
no.
giggling.
Oh, okay. I'd say it now.
I know that on some of these sports betting
Mike,
websites, you can find bets for almost anything having to do with the contest. I feel like the bet for this one that has to be like fight that will not go the distance. The judges will probably take a bathroom break during this fight because they will not be needed. It's worth noting that for Ruziboev's 8-fight win streak coming into this weekend, all 8 wins, first round finishes. Also, for Bruno Ferreira, of his 10 victories, only 2 of them have gone out of the first round. And both of those fights ended in the second round. 8 of his 10 victories were finished in the first round as well. So this one is going to be fireworks. And fuck if I know. I'll roll the dice and I'll be different. I will take the Uzbek coming to the UFC. People are going to be like, who the hell is that guy? Who's going to get the first round finish over the very, very dangerous Bruno Ferreira. I'll say he gets it to the ground and gets a win by submission over the Brazilian in favor of the Uzbek. Black. Surely his nickname is not Black. It's probably whatever is the Uzbek word for black.
Yeah, I bet.
All right, let's go on here. Plenty more fights in the main card. A nice 6-fight main card for this UFC Fight Night. Okay, in the lightweight division, one of the Bonfim brothers, who are both taking the UFC by storm, is now featured on this main card. Ismael Maheta Bonfim taking on, is it Benoit or Benoit? I always forget.
Benoit.
It is Benoit Saint-Denis, the God of War.
Benoit Saint-Denis.
Yeah, out of Paris, Francais. I suck at French. Let's cue this up real quick. Ismael Bonfim, the 27-year-old out of Brazil, 19-3 as a pro, 9 wins by knockout. Has a hell of a win streak coming up. I'm not going to count right now. It is many, many fights. It looks like it's close to 15 fights in a row that he's won coming into this weekend. Most recently, finishing the very talented and very explosive Terrence McKinney by knockout via flying knee in the second round back in January. He will be standing across from Benoit Saint-Denis, the God of War from France, 27 years old, 10-1 as a pro with 1 no contest. 8 of those victories coming by way of submission, riding a back-to-back win streak coming into this weekend. Most recently, finishing Gabriel Miranda by TKO in the second round back in September of 2022. Mark, start us off. Give us your take and your pick of Saint-Denis versus Bonfim.
All right, so Vegas is just as high on Bonfim as the rest of us are. He is minus 335. Benoit Saint-Denis is plus 255 as the dog. There are 3 inches of height and 2 inches of 3 inches of height and 2 inches of reach on the Saint-Denis side of this. And I really like Benoit Saint-Denis. The guy is a warrior, and against a different type of step up, I may have rolled with him, but not doing it here. Ismael Bonfim looks fantastic. He was hyped pre-UFC. He delivered on the hype, and he's not terribly dissimilar from Elizeu Zaleski, who already worked Benoit Saint-Denis in his debut. So now, granted, that was at welterweight, and we're down at lightweight here, but I think the skills of Bonfim are similar to those of Zaleski, and I think they're going to shine here more than the toughness of Saint-Denis. He'll mix it up. He'll be cleaner. He'll stuff takedowns. He's not afraid of the firepower coming back at him. I'm debating if he can get a finish just because Saint-Denis is so damn tough, but I'll say yes. Saint-Denis, as good as he is, he does get hit a fuck ton. So give me Ismael Bonfim, round 2, knockout.
Like it. Omar, go.
Omar, you're muted. You guys are struggling with the old mute button.
Yeah, dude, I have some allergies I'm working through, so in order to prevent blowing up these microphones, I'm going in and out here. But the Bonfim brothers, I'm a huge fan of, man. I think they're absolutely fantastic. I think they're super skilled. I love their striking, and I have no intention of picking against him. So I will be going by Bonfim brother A by KO. I'm going to go round 1 for KO.
Handing Saint-Denis his first finish loss of his career. But you know what? I'm going to agree with you. You know, he's only 10-1, so he's still relatively new in his career. He's only 27 years old. I agree. I think that this fight is going to be fucking bananas for as long as it lasts. But I'll go with the talent of Ismael Bonfim getting it done. I'll say first round TKO finish for Ismael Bonfim over Benoit Saint-Denis. Let's go. Here we go. Women's flyweight, Ariana Lipski versus Melissa Gatto. So, Lipski, the queen of violence, fighting out of Curitiba, Brazil, 29 years old, 15-8 as a pro. 9 of those wins coming by finish, most recently getting a UD over JJ Aldrich back in March of this year. Melissa Gatto, her opponent, the 27-year-old, also out of Brazil, 8-1 with 2 draws. 6 of those wins coming by finish, knockout, or submission. She's looking to get back in the win column after losing a decision to the very talented Tracy Cortez in May of last year. Omar, start us off this time. Give us your take and your pick of Gatto versus Lipski.
I think it's a very interesting fight. I keep having this thought that Gatto will be able to get this fight to a position where she can take advantage of the ground, whether that be ground and pound, whether that be a submission. I just see Melissa Gatto edging out certain positions to give her a certain advantage, but I think this fight will be very close. With that being said, I'm going to go with Melissa Gatto here, and I think she can pull out 2 rounds out of the 3. So I'll go Melissa Gatto by unanimous decision.
Mark?
Melissa Gatto is the favorite. She's minus 240. Ariane Lipski is plus 190 as the underdog. 1 inch of height for Lipski, but 2 inches of reach for Gatto. This is a tough one to call, and I actually think it's a lot closer than those odds suggest. I could see it going either way. I could see Gatto kind of having success from the range. I could see her getting on top and winning from there. But I think I'm gonna go for the upside here. I'm gonna say that Lipski can stuff some takedowns and make this fight ugly. If it's a cleaner fight, less of a hectic fight, Gatto wins it. I think if Lipski can ugly it up a bit, have some phone booth moments, be the queen of violence, I think she can get it done. So I will say Lipski wins a. Ooh, do I want to call it a split? I do. I will say Lipski split decision.
Yeah, tough one to pick for me as well. I'm quite a bit torn on this one. The decision maker for me is that Lipski has been finished with strikes 4 times in her career. So it's close for me, but I'll say that in one of those firefights, Lipski gets caught. I think she's a little bit more susceptible to the damage, and she gets finished, I'll say, in the 3rd round. TKO for Gatto. I don't see it being a club and sub. I think Lipski's ground game is too good. So I'll say she finishes her with a rapid succession, a flurry of strikes on the ground, and she gets her out of there. Okay. Welterweight division. Oh, let me cue this up real quick. we have Max Payne Griffin taking on Michael Morales. This should be a fun one. Max Griffin, the 37-year-old out of Sacramento, California, 19-9 as a pro with 9 knockouts on his record. Most recently defeating Tim Means by split decision back in October. Michael Morales, the 23-year-old out of Ecuador, undefeated coming into this fight, 14-0. 12 of those wins finishes, most recently TKOing Adam Fugit back in July of last year, about 1 year ago. Excited to see Morales back in the octagon this weekend. Omar, start us off. Give us your take and your pick.
Yeah, man. I really like Morales, how Morales has been spending his time in the UFC. Finish over Trevin Giles, finish over Adam Fugit. Max Griffin is one of those guys that's kind of high and low. He had a fight with Tim Means that was a good fight. I can't remember if I thought he won that fight or not. I do remember it being a close fight. But there's just something about the cleanness of Morales that I really like, and there's something about the inconsistencies of Max Griffin that makes it difficult for me to pick. I'm going to go with Morales here, and I think Morales can take him out, man. I think he can touch him right on the chin. I'm going to go with KO round 2.
Like it. Mark?
You're going last every time again, huh? I see what you're doing. Michael Morales is a minus 250 favorite here. Max Griffin's a plus 200 dog. That does feel maybe a bit wider than it should be. I've been a fan of Michael Morales through his 2 fights. Max Griffin, I think, has looked very solid lately. This is a tough one where one of these guys is going to have to lose here despite both being on nice runs. It's 1 inch of height and 3 inches of reach for Morales. And Griffin's going to be a great test for him. It really is. Griffin's a tough out for anybody. He's so composed. He knows how to score. He's good everywhere. He's a vet. It's not going to be easy, but I'm going to say Morales passes this test. I think he kind of just has that it factor right now where, as young as he is, the pure skills are going to be enough to get him past Max Griffin. He also has been off for a year, so I'm curious to see what improvements he has potentially made in his game. I'll say that he leans on the speed, on the explosiveness, and the fact that he's the harder puncher, and he manages to win at least 2 of these rounds. I will say Michael Morales, UD.
I agree. I think still undefeated is the words that is going to be uttered this weekend by whoever is announcing this one. Michael Morales, I think you said it well among the many good points you made. He's younger. He's going to be bigger. He's going to be stronger, more explosive striking. I've also never been a huge Max Griffin guy. I've been impressed by the run that he's put together, but I've just never been totally wowed by his skill set. That being said, Michael Morales, 23 years old, he's a bit of a up and comer, man, and quite impressive stuff coming from him. Incredible finish rate of his 14-0 record. Give me Michael Morales. I'll take TKO in the second round over Max Payne Griffin. I think he's going to be feeling the pain this weekend. Okay, co-main event time in the lightweight division. We have Damir Ismagulov taking on Grant Dawson, a fun one in the 155 ranks. Ismagulov, the 32-year-old out of Orenburg, Russia. His record coming into this weekend is 24-2. 13 of those wins coming by way of knockout or submission, mostly knockouts. He is looking to get back in the win column after dropping a UD to the rising young superstar Arman Sarukian back in December. That snapped a hell of a win streak by Ismagulov. That was only the second loss of his career. He will be standing across from the American Grant Dawson, KGD, the 29-year-old out of Stromsburg, Nebraska. His record stands at 19-1 with 1 draw. 13 wins by submission. Add 4 knockouts to that. Riding a 2-fight win streak coming into this weekend, defeating Jared Gordon and Mark O. Madsen in succession. Prior to those 2 victories, he drew against Ricky Glenn. Hasn't lost a fight since 2016. Undefeated thus far in the UFC. Omar, start us off. Give us your take and your pick of Dawson versus Ismagulov.
It's a really difficult fight for me to pick, to be honest. Ismagulov is one of those guys that we know likes to grind, likes to work, likes to try and get in on the legs. And I think the real problem is that Grant Dawson is one of those guys that will take an opportunity if he sees it. I don't think he gives a shit where you learned your wrestling from. I don't think he's worried about it. I don't think he's scared about it. And I think he could take advantage of it if he sees those openings. It's just it's a coin flip, I think, right? Because I don't think Grant Dawson will have any other avenue to success other than trying to finish him in one fashion or the other. I think Ismagulov is going to be a little bit too active, probably the one pushing the pace in general, and I think Grant Dawson is going to have to find an opportunity and capitalize on it. So I'm going to go with Grant Dawson. I'm going to go with Grant Dawson. I think he might be able to pull it off. Fuck you, Mark. Don't judge me.
It was just, no, I only laughed because it seemed like you were going the other way, and then you were like... Oh.
I was going the other way. I was.
America.
I was. And for those of you who bet and stuff like that, don't listen to me. Don't do it. You're going to lose a lot of money. Don't do it. But I do think Grant Dawson has what it takes. So I'm going to go with submission round 3 for Grant Dawson.
I disagree, and I will go next. This is a classic case of the striker versus the submission expert. The striker being Ismagulov, and the submission expert being Grant Dawson. I think I see Demir handing Dawson what will be only his second loss, and his second loss by knockout. So I think he catches him and trying to close the distance to get the fight to the ground. And I think that this is going to come. It hasn't been a while since he lost, so I'll say it's going to come at the end of the first round. Mark?
Wow. All right, this is a dead even fight. It is a pick'em. Both men are minus 110. This is a great fight. They're the same height. There's a 2-inch reach advantage on the Ismagulov side. And I was a bit torn when I first started thinking about this. But I agree with what Omar said, even though he then picked Grant Dawson. I think for Grant Dawson to win this fight, he has to out-grapple Damir Ismagulov. And any other scenario means Damir is probably going to win this fight. And I just don't know if he can do that. Like, I don't know if he can do the typical Grant Dawson things to Damir. And if he can, we're going to have to start accepting that Grant Dawson's very good. Because, like, remember the way Damir scrambled against Arman Tsarukyan. And, like, yes, Arman beat him and won most of the rounds, but he could barely even hold Damir down. Like, he was getting up miraculously against Arman. So, as much as I like Grant Dawson, I've been high on Grant Dawson, I don't think he can hold Damir down either. And I'll be really impressed if he does. And on the feet, I think it's going to be all Damir. And I also trust his cardio more. I think he's going to be picking apart Dawson with the jab and just generally outpointing him. So I will say Damir Ismagulov wins a UD.
Okay. With that being said...
I can't decide which way I want to say his name. I rotate between Ismagulov and Ismagulov like every sentence that I say. Yeah. I don't know why.
Probably somewhere in between. Okay, with that being said, it is main event time. UFC Fight Night Strickland versus Magomedov. Yeah. Sean Tarzan Strickland taking on Abus Magomedov. I'll start this one off. It is a middleweight fight of huge consequence for both of these men. Sean Strickland, the 32-year-old out of Anaheim, California, coming into this weekend. He has a very impressive record of 26 victories with 5 defeats, with 10 knockouts. Add 4 submission victories to that. He's never been submitted, and he has been knocked out only twice. After getting knocked out for that second time against Alex Pereira, he then lost a very close split decision against Jared Cannonier, a fight that I actually thought that he won. And then he got right back in the win column against Nasruddin Imavov back in January. He is quite the veteran in the UFC at this point, having fought at welterweight and then moved up to middleweight. Has been very successful at middleweight. I have not tallied up his records in both divisions thus far, but he has certainly made a name for himself at 185 pounds. Very different kind of fighter that he will be standing across from. Abus Magomedov, the 32-year-old out of Russia. He will be coming into this weekend with a very impressive record as well, consisting of 25 wins with 4 defeats and 1 draw, 14 wins by knockout, another 6 wins by submission. He's riding a 3-fight win streak as a pro and is 1-0 thus far in the UFC, winning by very impressive fashion by TKO with a front kick right up the middle against Dustin Stoltzfus in the first round in only 19 seconds, getting his first UFC victory by TKO. So we have a long tenured at this point UFC vet taking on a newcomer who shined in his UFC debut. I will go first this time for the main event to even things out. I think given the attributes of Magomedov, even though I feel like there's a lot more unknowns, and I could definitely have some egg on my face with this one, because Sean Strickland, he got knocked out by Pereira. I think he beat Cannonier in a very close fight. And then he had another vintage Sean Strickland performance against Imavov, which I was very disappointed in Imavov because I thought that Imavov possessed the attributes, the size, and the striking prowess and the power to give Sean Strickland fits. But Sean Strickland, props to him, man, because he finds ways to make the fight, his kind of pace, his kind of style of fight. Crowding guys, pressuring guys, with that weird sort of hands down around his chest stance, just sort of slowly plodding forward. He's good everywhere. He has decent power. He doesn't have like go to sleep power, Sean Strickland, but he has thudding power. He's good enough on the ground to nullify those kind of attacks. That being said, I was incredibly impressed by the 19-second TKO victory from Magomedov. Given his size over Sean Strickland, I see him giving him fits, and I'm going to say that, I'll go out on a limb here, picking first. I'll say that Magomedov finds a knockout victory over Sean Strickland in the second round. Who would like to go?
I'll go. Odds are pretty close. Strickland is minus 150 as the favorite. Magomedov is plus 125 as the underdog. 1 inch of height and 2 inches of reach on the Magomedov side of things. I'm not ready to do this. It's very, very hard for me to pick Abus Magomedov. We've seen him for 19 seconds in the octagon. Yes, we've seen him in the PFL, but there was not even any wins over huge names there to necessarily hang your hat on. He lost to Lewis Taylor over there. Yes, the record is great. Yes, the skills are obvious. But, I mean, we are really jumping up the rankings here. I mean, a lot of people, as you said, just thought Sean Strickland beat Jared Cannonier, who at this point is the third best middleweight in the world, if we're not counting Ferreira as a middleweight anymore, and who just looked incredible against Marvin Vettori. So I'm not sure how I can make myself believe without seeing it that Abus Magomedov is this good. And maybe it's going to happen, but I'm not ready to make that pick. Does Sean have to be careful in the first 5 minutes to not get caught? Yes, sure, but I think he's good enough everywhere to not let Abus take over this fight. And I think as the fight goes on, Sean starts putting a lot of punches right into Abus's mush. Give me Sean Strickland 48-47, maybe even 49-46 by UD. They're the same age, too. It's not like Magomedov is some young stud. I just think Strickland's better, but we will see. It's a weird one to pick. Give me Sean Strickland, UD.
Okay, Omar.
Yeah, I don't think that Abus is going to be able to abuse him on the ground. Sean Strickland is very good defensively, if nothing else. His striking leaves something to be desired, right? He's not going to go out there and just completely lay Abus out with one punch, but he very well might like land 50 punches in a row and just batter Abus down into the ground at some point later on throughout the fight. Strickland is a volume puncher, and I think if Abus doesn't find a way to stop that or nullify that, it's going to be a long fight for him. And I think if we're talking about resilience and we're talking about durability, I just think that unless you push Sean Strickland out, he's going to keep coming for you like the psychopath that he is. So I'm also going to be going Sean Strickland by unanimous decision.